Hello, my name's Jayne. I'm a Church of England ordinand and I live in Cheshire with my husband and my 4 children. And I've been asked to record a reflection for you all for this evening about the wilderness. Now, the reflection I'm going to read to you is one that I actually wrote over a year ago for Lent in 2019. And it's funny how you can write something over a year ago and then we find ourselves in the situation that we're in now, and it's immensely pertinent. So I'm going to read it to you now, starting off with a short verse from Mark 1:12-13. Let's go. And the Spirit immediately drove him out of the wilderness. He was in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and he was with the wild beasts, and the angels waited on him. And throughout this time of dislocation, confusion and fear, our liturgical calendar still continues to roll on inexorably. And despite it all, Lent continues. Lent is perhaps now more than ever an invitation to journey into that wilderness with Jesus as our companion. What will we find there? Beasts or angels or both? The wilderness probably isn't complete without a combination of the two. 15 and a half years ago, I myself endured an extended stay in the wilderness, lasting far longer than 40 days and 40 nights. This was long before I believed in God or before I really knew who Jesus was. This is my short reflection on that experience and what I encountered there. It was early in the morning when the taxi driver pulled up outside my apartment block. He sat in the car and waited while I repeatedly climbed up and down 2 flights of stairs to carry down a pram, a large suitcase, a holdall, and finally my infant daughter. The taxi driver said nothing, but then there was little point in conversation. I was an English woman living in a district of Prague where there were only locals, and I don't speak Czech. I was 25 years old and I was leaving my husband, taking my 6-month-old baby daughter with me. There probably were no words for that situation anyway. There was thick silence in the taxi on the way to the airport. I gestured towards a service station as we passed with its cash point so that I might pull in. I showed him my empty purse to try and get him to understand what it was I needed. He grunted and we pulled into the station. I cried silently the rest of the way, and the driver gave no indication that he noticed or even cared. But you saw. You heard. I didn't know it then, but looking back, I know that you, God, you were beside me. Through it all, you watched over me, your spirit, a soothing presence that guided me and gave me strength that I never knew I had. You worked through the sleeping child on my lap, that precious gift you'd bestowed upon me. For if I couldn't break free for myself, I could do it for her. The wilderness is terrifying in its silent emptiness, but there's also freedom to be found there. I took what I could carry, which was very little, and I abandoned the rest. Things, so many precious things that I'd once held dear and I'd clung to and assumed I couldn't live without. Favourite items of clothing, shoes, ornaments, books, music, my baby's toys, my graduation photograph. I had no choice but to leave them behind and take only what I needed to get through the immediate future. When you pare it down to its bare bones, you actually need very little at all. But you saw. You felt my loss. You entered the void left behind by the things I'd lost, and you filled it with your presence until I was permeated by a numbing calm. I became untouchable, and it was pure grace. I wish I'd had a name for you then, when I was alone in the wilderness. But I didn't know you existed. Didn't realise that there really was such a wondrous reality as God. And through it all, you did not abandon me. Not on the journey in that taxi, not on the plane afterwards, nor back in England when I relied on others to sustain me physically while you silently, quietly worked on my spirit. The wilderness can seem to be an endless landscape of hopelessness with no beginning or end. And I confess I got lost in it for a long time and I couldn't find my way out. There was no one to hear my silent screams. But you heard. You understood. And eventually you showed me the way out. You didn't leave my side, and you've not left it since. Eventually, like arriving in Emmaus, I recognized you for who you are, and you lit a fire in my heart that's burned steadily ever since. There was no blinding light. This was no Damascene moment. Instead, there was a gradual awakening, an inexorable unveiling as I knocked on the door of faith and asked questions about who you are. I thank you every day for the people who you sent to answer me. I will never not be aware of how you work through others, nor underestimate how you work through me. Now, every year, I intentionally return to the wilderness to remind myself of the lost things and that hollow place that once existed inside me and which I dared not even question. Now there is you and me together in the wilderness, and I will never be alone again. My prayer for us all during this seemingly ceaseless time of Lent is that we come to know God better through spending time with him in the wilderness, that we cease to mourn the lost things in our lives and instead find peace and sanctuary in him. I pray we journey safely in the wilderness. I pray we wrestle with beasts and have conversations with angels. I pray we stick to the path laid straight before us. And most of all, I pray our hearts burn within us as he talks to us on the road. Amen, and God bless us all.